My watch says 10:30, so. All right, welcome. Welcome to Chex Quest and the history of cereal box prizes before and after. Thank you all so much for coming. I've never presented anything like this to this many people before. This is rad. I am streaming it to Twitch if you want to share it. A little bit about me. My name is Karl Hohn. I sometimes make games and curate exhibitions of games and teach people how to build websites and make art and make music. I do a lot of that stuff at a place called Baby Castles in New York City. That's right. Come visit our booth on the Indie Arcade floor. We've got the 20-foot LED strip game and the game in the tent and the game with the guitar and stuff. I also work at a bar in New York City called Wonderville, and I teach web dev at Pratt Institute. But we're not here to talk about me. We're here to talk about Chex Quest. Chex Quest is a total conversion of Doom, released in 1996, distributed in boxes of Chex cereal. It was created by a studio called Digital Cafe, based out of St. Paul, Minnesota, which was founded in 1991 by these two guys. On the left is Dean Hires, the creative director, and on the right is Mike Koenigs, the technical director. They both also worked on Chex Quest, but Digital Cafe did a few other things as well. They built the website for the MST3K movie, and they made like CD-ROM games for the Minnesota educational system, public school system, and for the Minneapolis Zoo, among other things. But Chex Quest is absolutely their claim to fame. It was a team of 9 people in total that developed it, but the main 3, the sort of most important characters in sort of the ongoing life of Chex Quest are Charles Jacoby, who was the lead artist, Scott Holman, who was the programmer who was in high school over the course of developing the game and so was working 3 to 9 p.m. After school, and Andrew Benson, who did the music. This is the intro video that came off the CD.
A volcano exploded on planet Bezoik, launching particles of rock into space. One of these asteroids was captured by the squadron and brought to our labs.
We were investigating these blobulars as proof of cereal life on other planets when we discovered that they actually contain eggs to an evil cereal-eating creature from another dimension. We call them flemoids. Eggs are exposed to nutritional substances. The eggs hatch.
Preposterous! We have a nutritional development center in the caverns of Bezoik. They're growing fruit and vegetables, and they haven't had any trouble.
General, 2 days ago we lost contact with Bezoik. We can only assume the flemoids have taken over.
To make matters worse, we have found that conventional weapons seem to have no effect on flemoids.
We need a volunteer to fly to the caverns of Bezoik and attempt a rescue of our citizens there.
That's ridiculous. What soldier would be fool enough to enter a cavern full of unstoppable flemoids from another dimension? By recalibrating the phase frequency of our Zorchers to match that of our transporters, we can send the flemoids back to their own dimension.
We need a volunteer.
I'm
Chex Squadron, and I volunteer.
Spaceship just landed. There we go. Okay. Oh. Does anyone have another mini DisplayPort to HDMI dongle? Well, hang on one second. That came off of this CD that John, stand up. My friend John Bruno sold this to me for what, $10 or something? It's probably worth a lot more than that. I love technology so much. So let's. Yeah, if anybody's got a mini DisplayPort to HDMI dongle, now would be a great time to come up to the front of the stage. Oh. Okay, cool. All right. So yeah, that's just a picture of this CD. But really, if we're going to talk about Chex, if we're going to talk about Chex Quest, we should just start here at the Battle Creek Sanitarium in Battle Creek, Michigan, where cornflakes were invented in 1894. By these two guys. On the left, this is John Harvey Kellogg, and on the right is his brother, William Keith Kellogg. John Harvey Kellogg was kind of a health quack, or pseudo-scientific healer guy, and a very, very outspoken anti-masturbation activist who developed cornflakes as an aphrodisiac, a food designed to lower people's sex drives. It was the custom of the day to eat very protein-heavy meals for breakfast, and Kellogg thought that would make people horny. He and Will Kellogg developed cornflakes together, and they disagreed over what should be done with what they should do with their product. And in 1906, William launches the Sanitas Toasted Cornflakes cereal company, which becomes today's Kellogg cereal. He puts the product out on the market in 1906, and in 1907, a purchase of a box of cornflakes comes with a prize. This is the Funny Jungleland Moving Pictures book, which was a point-of-sale promotion. So it wasn't packaged in the box, but if you bought 2 boxes of cornflakes, the cashier would give you this book for free. And it's kind of, and you can see, yeah, patented in 1907. So pretty quickly after cereal goes on the market, there's a prize associated with it. And the book itself is opens in a trifold and has all these these sort of slats that flip over each other so that different heads can go on different bodies and different feet. And that's why it's called a moving pictures book, because you move stuff around to make different pictures. And it's very, they're not hiding the fact that they're shelling for cereal here. It's, very transparently, sing from daylight until night, sing from dark until it's light. Kellogg's cornflakes every morn, it's the sweetheart of the corn. But the cereal industry picks up pretty quickly, and prizes, packaged prizes as kind of a promotional tool, start picking up keeping pace. In 1933, General Mills has a very successful campaign with Skippy cards, which I'm a little unclear as to whether these were packaged inside the box or whether they were just cut out of the cardboard, they were just printed inside the box and you would cut it out. I believe that that's how it worked. But just Skippy was just a cartoon character, and you would collect cards of him doing different athletic activities. And it was designed to, the premise was just that Wheaties are designed to give you lots of energy to go out and, go out and play. What's considered the sort of first true pack-in prize, where the prize itself is inside the bag of cereal, comes in 1945 in Kellogg's Pep cereal. These are Pep pins. They're small pinback buttons. They're almost identical to the kind of small pinback buttons that you can get anywhere today. And they just featured popular cartoon characters from the newspaper. We got Superman and Popeye and Olive Oyl here, and these are characters from some other cartoon of the day I don't know about. Oh, is that Gasoline Alley? Okay. But all total, there were like 83 or so in the full set. But one of the first promotional prizes to really sort of make a big resonant cultural impact comes a little earlier, and that is the Little Orphan Annie Decoder badge which debuted in 1935. This is from 1936. This was in promotion with Ovaltine, so I believe that it was you sent away for the pin, and there would be a coded message at the end of the Little Orphan Annie radio show. Ovaltine kept that sponsorship until 1940. After 1940, they launched another radio show and did a decoder badge campaign for that as well. These were really popular and just kind of entered the cultural lexicon really, really fast and became really ubiquitous. And in 1960, PF, just for scale, they're about the size of a quarter. But in 1960, PF Flyers makes the first decoder ring as a promotional campaign tie-in with Johnny Quest. And this is kind of the form factor that these remain in and that's how we get the trope of the decoder ring, is because it's just, I don't know, it's pretty cool. And there's a Chex one too. This was from the mid-1960s, and this is a cheap plastic one. The PF Flyers one, I think, was some metallic compound, but this one is just plastic with a paper disc on top. And this kind of the mid-60s, the early to mid-60s are kind of this like golden era of cereal box prizes, because plastics are booming, and no one has done any research into what the negative health effects of putting plastics in your food is. And so there's all kinds of prizes, things like Matchbox cars, parachute men. There were these little plastic submarines that you would fill with like a thimbleful of baking soda and put it into water, and it would sink, and then as the baking soda dissolved, it would bubble up and it would float back to the surface. And so cereal box prizes kind of take the form of just cheap little toys like that, cash in on trends and stuff, like this Chex Rubik's Cube from the mid-'80s. And we can see that sort of the fruits and vegetables part of a balanced breakfast thing is kind of ever present in the branding of cereal box prizes. Oh, thank you. Well, it's good for now, but if it fails again, I'll just. This is, the Rubik's Cube is from the early to mid 1980s, as are video games, which is why we're here. Advergames kind of start becoming a genre pretty early on. They tend to be for the Atari 2600 largely. There are definitely ones on Intellivision and ColecoVision and other platforms, but and then later on for MS-DOS and PC platforms. But the earliest ones, by and large, were for Atari. This is Chase the Chuck Wagon, which is significant here because it is Ralston Purina's first advergame. A good 15 years before Chex Quest, they got into it with this game where you're a little dog running through a maze, ostensibly under a sink. This is a dog catcher running around to catch you. When you get out of when you make it through the maze, this food dish comes out and you have to like position yourself to eat the food. Yeah, and that's a fail. But so then another one that's interesting to talk about here is Pepsi Invaders. Pepsi Invaders was developed by Coca-Cola, and it's literally just a reskin of Space Invaders. So this is a really rare one. This was only distributed at a trade show. Chase the Chuck Wagon was available to the public through a mail order campaign. You sent in your proof of purchase to get the game. But this was just for industry people. They made a very small selection of them. But it's interesting. It's interesting here because it's the earliest example I could find of a corporate or like a product placement game that's a reskinning of an existing game. Doing nothing to change the gameplay except make it branded. And another one that's interesting in this context is Yo Noid on the Nintendo Entertainment System. Yo Noid is an American localization of a Japanese game called Kamen no Ninja Hanamaru. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. I'm probably butchering that. Oh, thank you. Thanks, Dustin. But so as part of the deal to localize this for American audiences, they just branded it as Domino's Pizza. I forgot to mute all these videos. Oops. But oh, you want the sound? So yeah, it's just like, it's a platformer with little mini games. There's like a pizza eating contest. Yeah, here's the pizza eating contest. Yeah. But yeah, so by this point, by the time Yo Noid comes out, that's in 1990, and in 1991. John Romero and John Carmack found id Software and start cranking out games at a crazy pace. I think in their first year, in 1991, they released something like, they put at least like, something like 6 or 8 games out that were all like really technical, kind of pushing a lot of technical boundaries of what like 286 PCs could do. Their first-person shooter is a game called Hovertank 3D in April of 1991. In November of 1991, they do another one called Catacombs 3D. And then they really hit the mark with this in May of 1992 when they put Wolfenstein 3D out. And this game, this one kind of puts them on the map as like an FPS studio. Dangerous Dave and Commander Keen had gotten them a lot of attention. They're side-scrolling platformer games, but this was the one that really gave them a reputation as a studio that is known for first-person shooter games. This is also where we should probably talk about Super Noah's Ark 3D. So Super Noah's Ark 3D is something of the failed forerunner of Chex Quest, because Super Noah's Ark 3D was originally supposed to come out on the NES, and it was supposed to be a video game adaptation of Hellraiser. The studio that made the game, Wisdom Tree, paid $50,000 to license the property of Hellraiser and purchase the rights to the Wolfenstein 3D engine before anyone realized that A, it would be really expensive to make NES cartridges with a coprocessor in them that could run the Wolf 3D engine, and B, they were a Christian company and decided maybe we shouldn't put out Hellraiser. So they wait around like 2 years to just let their license on Hellraiser expire. And by that time, the Super Nintendo has come out, which can actually run the Wolf 3D engine. And so you get this game where it's Wolf 3D, but you're Moses running around throwing. Noah. I'm sorry. You're Noah running around slingshotting food into animals' mouths to make them go to sleep. Another thing and so sort of there's a lot of reasons that this production is kind of doomed. Doom comes out in 1993, and it's just a huge hit. And sort of like, the cultural ripples are, really, really broad. And Doom 2 comes out like a year later, in 1994. Another thing that kind of like, as the game proliferates, a community of people making their own content for it and modding it starts to kind of spring up and grow in tandem with it. So one of the things that sort of made the engine attractive to a company trying to an advertising agency trying to crank out a game in 6 months, because Chex Quest was developed in 6 months. There were already freeware tools available for making Doom content, and there was already a community of people that knew how to do it. Also, the engine was cheap because by the time that Chex Quest became a project, Quake was already out. So id Software was cutting people deals on the license to the Doom engine. So that's where Chex Quest got it. Their rationale was that making a game on top of Doom was cheap and fast and easy. The U.S. Marines had the same idea. This is Marine Doom. This is also from 1996, but this was actually made by the U.S. Marine Corps as a training exercise. But I just kind of I like the irony that or the dissonance that sort of on the one hand in the same year a cereal company and a military organization both make licensed Doom games, one trying to be ostensibly non-violent and the other trying to be as violent as possible, and if not even more realistic than Doom. But Chex Quest, here's some of the concept art from the development cycle. This is Charles Jacoby's original concept art. And you can see that the Flemoids were originally supposed to be yellow. And the guns were originally designed to look a little more like an actual gun. That redesign was made to make it more kid-friendly. Ralston Purina also rejected a potential mechanic of the game being a food fight kind of thing, where you would actually throw fruits and vegetables at the monsters, and they would try to like deplete your, capacity for nutrition or whatever. But the company rejected it because they didn't want people to think they were encouraging kids to have food fights, and so they went back to things that looked like remote controls and kind of like the tricorders and phasers from Star Trek and things like that. The Flemoids also apparently were only green in the finished game because this shade of yellow, they couldn't get it right in the color palette, so they changed them to green instead. Another thing that sort of sticks out to me about Chex Quest is the sound design, and the sound effects that the Flemoids make are really just unhinged and crazy noises. And Charles Jacoby said in an interview, that was Dean Hires and Andrew Benson just sitting in the sound booth acting like little kids. Which leads me to believe that happened probably real late in the development cycle. probably very late at night after, like deep into crunch, when everyone was like so tired and loopy that they didn't really know what they were doing, and just went off into some really crazy spaces. But so in 6 months they develop 5 levels. It's full reskinning. They press between 5 and 6 million copies, and they run a 6-week campaign selling them.
Chex are fun, Chex are hot. Looking for a taste of what the cereal's got? Chex marks the spot. The one-of-a-kind part of this complete breakfast. Now you can get a free CD-ROM game inside boxes of Chex cereals. Help Chex Man battle the Flamoids and save the planet Bazoik. One free and specially marked boxes of Chex cereals.
But so the response to this was very good. They pressed at least 5 to 6 million copies. They moved their entire printing in 6 weeks and boosted the sales of Chex cereal by 295%. And so very quickly, they made the move to capitalize on this by we got to put out a Chex Quest 2. So what they did was they made a plan to make 5 more wads, but this time instead of pressing CDs, they would release individual wads as they were done as free downloads on ChexQuest.com. And they, I don't know how long their development cycle was, but it was even shorter than 6 months. They were on an extremely tight turnaround. And the reaction was not as good because the games were just the levels were just a lot less polished. There's kind of, just no textures on stuff. Things look very empty. But at the same time, there's also like parts of Chex Quest 2 that have this like really hilarious character to them. There's this art museum level that has all these like versions of famous artworks remade with Chex characters. There's also there's a Chex Thinker and a Chex David and a Chex and like Chex dinosaurs for some reason in an art museum. And like this Chex Mark Rothko is really good. And the Chex Venus de Milo is just like a tour de force. And that's a secret door too. There's also this movie theater level, and for some reason it's just this, the movie screens are animated, but they're watching Battleship Potemkin, and like, but it's just the shot of the baby carriage going down the stairs on loop. But so so the end of Chex Quest 2 teases a possible Chex Quest 3, but it never comes out, or it doesn't come out, in part because General Mills buys out Ralcorp, and so the brand changes hands. And shortly thereafter, Digital Cafe is acquired by another company and then merged into another company. So the studio's kaput. But there are there is a copycat to the idea. There is Captain Crunch's Crunchling Adventure. This came out in 1999. By the way, the reason that all of these things came on America Online CDs is because pressing CDs was expensive, but if you were trying to press a bunch of copies like this and you were willing to bundle them with AOL, AOL would foot the bill for the pressing of the CDs. So that's why all this shovelware is always on AOL CDs. But so this game is kind of a series of mini games. You have these kind of Zoombini looking characters, kind of Fraggle Rock looking guys, and you just play little mini games. And there's more branding in the already branded game. And yeah, it's kind of, but you just sort of keep playing these mini games to level your characters up. until they have enough strength to defeat like a final boss, who I don't think is in this clip. But sort of also around this time, because an official Chex Quest 3 never came out, we get what's called the stolen version, which which is basically just levels pulled from other pre-existing Doom mods, cobbled together by like the modders and branded as Chex Quest 3 and foisted around as a fake or as a legitimate product that they claimed they'd stolen. And so it has different guns, and some of the scenery is wildly different. And in this level, the music is just the Twin Peaks music. I lost it when I but and then when it kicks you back out to DOS, you get this text that, you know, ostensibly brands it as the property of General Mills in Ralston Purina and tells you to go to chexquest.net. And some people bought it. People who knew, not bought as in money, but some people, you know, took the premise that this was an official game, but most people kind of saw through it. Around this time, there's also just generally kind of, you stop seeing as many physical pack-in prizes in food products. Supposedly, if you sort of, you know, Google around about this, you'll find a lot of articles that say that, you know, states passed legislation to limit marketing to children, but I could find no record of any actual such legislation being passed. Really, just what happened was companies realized it was cheaper to focus on downloadable content instead of actually having to manufacture stuff. And so you start getting other kinds of branded, reskinned advergames like My Coke, which is the Coke branded version of Habbo Hotel. This went online in 2002 and was pretty popular. There was a music theme to it. You were supposed to, like, you know, I don't know, go see bands in the little Habbo world or something. But this stayed up for 5 years. This shut down in 2007. The user base shifted over to another MMO called There, but then that closed down in 2010. There's also the Burger King games. These aren't these are not reskins, but they are it's like a kart racer and, like, you know, a pocket bike racer, and they're very sort of basic concepts. These were physically pressed though, but they started as Xbox Store exclusive, as just for download on the Xbox Store, but then they were very popular and they decided to actually press copies. One of the reasons that these were so popular, they were widely critically panned, but they were substantially cheaper than any other Xbox game at the time. You could get Sneak King or Big Bumpin' for like $5 at Burger King instead of like $40. But at this point, sort of to loop back to the Doom modding community, ZDoom is kind of pulling ahead as the most popular engine for the Chex Quest modding scene, and we start to see kind of people making reskinned or sort of remastered versions of Chex Quest. There's one called the Ultimate Chex Quest. This was in development from 2003 to 2014 that was basically just upscaling all the art. As far as I can tell, as far as I can understand, I haven't been able to find a playable or a version that I can play. I think like the download links are dead, but I don't think it changes the maps, but it just puts higher What's on? Yeah? Okay, cool. Thanks. There was also one called the new Chex Quest. This was made by, it's the same kind of concept of just sort of like a more high resolution version of the HD version of the game. And this is made by a guy called Manny Cav, who kind of, as far as I can tell, was something of a pretty like sort of important figure on like the Chex Quest message boards. Then there's another one called Chex Quest Advanced, which is from 2009, which actually does make some significant changes to the level layout and adds new levels, and is specifically built to run with the original Chex.exe also. So, and this one I have played, and it's really cool, and might be better than the original, depending on, you know, how you feel about that kind of thing. I go back and forth on it. This is when we get the official Chex Quest 3. Official, pseudo-official, sorry? Exactly, yes. Charles Jacoby basically did this as a passion project. And Scott Hohn and Andrew Benson also got on board to help make it as well. And it's 5 episodes, just like, you know, it's 5 episodes again, like the first two, like Chex Quest 1 and Chex Quest 2 were, but the maps are significantly longer, like substantially longer, and the whole game takes a lot longer to play. They also went back and redid a bunch of the art, a bunch of the map of Chex Quest 2, and they added, you know, they just sort of actually do it right. The spaceport looks a lot better, but they left the art museum almost completely unchanged. That level is like exactly the same. But this is sort of, this is kind of like, to the best of my knowledge, this is kind of like the last major event in the Chex Quest modding community for a while. And between 2009 and 2012, the Chex Quest fan forums, sort of the volume of posts of new mods starts to dwindle. And this is, the last post on this forum was made in 2015. And sort of after this point, it kind of, you know, just starts to kind of go dormant for a while. But we start seeing other mods that, like, at this point, sort of, it's made a big impact on sort of what Doom mods look like, or specifically like non-violent Doom mods. And I kind of sort these into 2 categories. First, you have games where, non-violent Doom mods where the game itself is basically unchanged. You just get cute graphics and the gore is downplayed. In 2010, there's a game called Star Wars Chibi Rebellion, which, you know, it's not exactly non-violent. I mean, Star Wars is pretty violent, but the characters are all little chibi things like this. And there's like sort of some puzzle aspects. Like right here, this is a part you have to get these like snow mice to go out and dig up mines in the minefield for you. There's also, from 2014, there's a game called The Adventures of Square, which is paintballing, but everyone is also made of paint. Everything is paint. All your enemies are just shapes, and you shoot, you know, you're shooting big paintball guns, and it's just all paint. From 2016, there's a game called Gloom Busters. Adventures of Square is a total conversion, and that's built on GZ Doom. I absolutely highly recommend it, and it's really, really, really good. And there's a sequel out as well. Gloom Busters sort of adds a lot of kind of MS Paint-y artwork, and it's the same levels as Doom or Doom 2, just reskinned. The premise here is everyone is a mom, and they who have been possessed by bad vibes, and you're just zapping them with like a child's toy gun to make them happy again. This is made by the same person that made the King of the Hill Doom mod, where you get on a lawnmower and drink beer and mow demons. And then in 2019, this game came out called Ride the Sunshine, where everything you're using is like, you have like this magic weapon that you're using to, that shoots like sunlight, and all the enemies are like ice demons that you're thawing out. And I love the artwork in this one. It reminds me of, there's a developer from Canada called Paloma Dawkins, and this artwork reminds me a lot of hers. But then there's kind of this other category of things where the gameplay gets changed as well. Like sort of, these are all still, first-person shooters. Mr. Hoppington's Shape Search is Doom reimagined as a children's game. And all you do, this was someone's school project in 2010. But all it does is take the key finding and sort of door opening aspect and focus on that as the game instead of any kind of, there's no enemies at all. You just have to, go around and meet cute animals and collect different shapes. There's a game called Mr. Friendly that came out in 2018 and is still in active development that turns Doom into Animal Crossing. Where you have to go talk to all the monsters and do nice things for them. And you can go fishing and catch a dope fish. This is just absolutely delightful. And it works on and this runs on top of, you can play this with any with either Doom or Doom 2 or any other WAD. It'll work with anything and just change it so that you help the monsters instead of kill them. And this also kind of starts to bleed into, first off, this approach to modding starts to bleed we start to see it in games other than Doom, into sort of things that are more art projects, like the San Andreas Deer Cam. This is a Grand Theft Auto 5 mod that's just a deer running around, and it just ran a stream of this for like a year. And this one's interesting though because it's actually pretty violent because all the NPCs will just try to kill the deer, but no one is actually controlling this. It's completely automatic, and in terms of what's on display, there's no violent mechanic involved. Yeah, it is pretty violent though. In terms of advergames, everything shifts to web and mobile, right? Also, advergames are no longer for kids. Advergames are for 90s kids. We start to see it's capitalizing on retro nostalgia. We get things like the Crystal Pepsi Trail.
How do you on an epic journey to bring clear cola back to the people? Dysentery was traded for diet.
It was a web game that was developed, full disclosure, by a company I used to work at for a little bit. But it's just, it's Oregon Trail redone in JavaScript, but all Crystal Pepsi branded and 90s themed. That came out in 2016. Pocket Mortys also came out in 2016. This was a Pokemon clone, but all branded as Rick and Morty. But also in 2016, Charles Jacoby announced that he was working on Chex Quest HD. This is a personal project that he's just doing for fun because he wants to learn Unreal Engine. He first announced this in 2016. Ars Technica interviewed him about, I don't think it was ours. It was he got interviewed about it in 2016. But in 2019, General Mills decided to build a campaign around it. So they built and hosted, built a website, again, designed to cash in on the nostalgia factor and sort of look like it's from the 90s. This download link links to the same download link that Charles Jacoby posted in 2008 of Chex Quest 3. It literally just takes you to his website, to a link that had already been up for 11 years. But so that's kind of where we are. And currently, as of December 1st, the fan page for Chex Quest 3 announced that they've been having technical issues. They're working on porting large parts of the code to C++, and they project a release date of summer 2020. So hopefully that's where we'll get. General Mills did spring to hire the same artist that did the American cover of the American artwork for Mega Man to do this nice poster, which is pretty cool. And also, there's this trailer. It looks like it's going to be a good game. May sound a little familiar.
Last week, a volcano exploded on planet Bezoik, launching particles of rock into space. One of these asteroids was captured by the squadron and brought to our labs.
We were investigating these blobulars as proof of cereal life on other planets when we discovered that they actually contain eggs to an evil cereal-eating creature from another dimension. We call them flemoids. When flemoid eggs are exposed to nutritional substances, the eggs hatch.
Preposterous! We have a nutritional development center in the caverns of Bezoik. They're growing fruit and vegetables, and they haven't had any trouble.
General, 2 days ago we lost contact with Bezoik. We can only assume the flemoids have taken over.
To make matters worse, we have found that conventional weapons seem to have no effect on flemoids.
We need a volunteer to fly to the caverns of Bezoik and attempt a rescue of our citizens there.
That's ridiculous.
Wait.
What
I just noticed something. Is that Duke Nukem?
What?
Of Bezoik and attempt a rescue.
Yeah, that's Duke Nukem. I have never noticed that.
Of our citizens.
I'll skip ahead to the. So yeah, this is what Chex Quest HD is supposed to look like. The maps are pretty much the same as Chex Quest 1, if I think. Yeah, and that's slated to come out in summer of 2020. Thank you. If you're on Facebook, follow Baby Castles on Twitch, because this talk, I did this talk at the Baby Castles Game of the Month Club, which we do every month. We have a Facebook group where we host a poll, we pick a game, and then someone does a presentation that in this kind of vein, and we stream them to Twitch. So, yeah, thanks. Does anybody have questions, or?
I have 2 questions.
Okay.
First of all, did you not talk about Tony and Friends in Kellogg's Land for the Amiga on purpose, or do you need me to tell you about it?
I need you to tell me about it.
Okay, let's hang out after this panel. I'll tell you about Tony and Friends in Kellogg's Land. Second, is phlegm the antithesis of cereal? I don't understand.
Apparently, which is weird because of the milk thing.
Right. I don't understand why phlegm is the enemy of Chex.
I think it just sort of, you know what I think it is? It's the enemy of crunchiness. And Chex is a crunchy cereal.
I like it. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you want to go to the mic?
I think it's like, oh, is this on? Testing, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay, I'm good. I think it's that like, it's supposed to be healthy because it's a full breakfast, and if you don't have like a full breakfast, you get sick because they're snot monsters. Oh. So you're ill.
So yes, the premise is eating a full breakfast will keep you healthy, and otherwise you get sick and full of snot. Yes.
Hey everyone. So I'm gonna admit the spoon was GOAT in Chex Quest. Can you guys agree?
Oh, the spoon. Are you talking about the electric spork?
Yes. The spork. The spork.
Yeah.
Oh my God, the memories.
Yeah, the chainsaw equivalent is an electric spork with a spinning end.
Like, I literally be level with just that fucking weapon.
Yeah.
I was fucking OG, bro.
I feel like that should be a speedrun category if it's not already, is only spork.
Yes, a spork for the win, guys.
Yes.
Woo!
Do you believe Captain Check may have been inspired by Buzz Lightyear?
Do I believe the Chex Warrior is inspired by Buzz Lightyear?
Yes.
I would not doubt it. I mean, Toy Story was a hot property at the time, right?
Yeah.
So, and Chex Quest did come out late in the year. I think it came out in November. So there's a very good chance that Toy Story influenced the design here.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, that's it for me. Thanks.